Hey, what's happening, everybody? Ryan Slocum here with you on what's pretty much a devastating day. The MHSAA announces that high school football will not be played this fall because of COVID-19. They're going to try to give it a go in the spring. That decision was made after weeks and months of pondering what they should do. You've heard interviews throughout the week. They were hoping to give it a go, but eventually they just decided the risk was not worth it. I can tell you, last night the MHSAA sent all of the athletic directors across the state a survey about each individual sport that is supposed to be played in the fall. Yes or no, should we play, should we not? That was to be returned this morning. There was a meeting this morning, and between the surveys, all the knowledge they have from doctors and whatnot, it was decided today that got to postpone it. Can't do it. I know it's devastating for everybody. Here we are. We're just 2 weeks away from the kickoff. Full padded practice was supposed to start on Monday. I know of numerous schools that the kids were given their pads today. Given their pads today. Get ready for Monday's practice. And now they just have to go back and turn around and give them right back to the guys, to their coaches, whether it was today, whether it's Monday, whenever that is. It just sucks. Absolutely terrible situation. I don't need to tell you that. You already know that. I know there's a lot of people out there, players, coaches, parents, that are upset that it took this long. They thought a decision should have been made previous. Can't say that I disagree with that. A lot of coaches think their kids were led on, as like today when they're given their pads and now they have to give them back. So I wanted to get the thoughts of everybody. I wanted to talk to a player, a coach, and an athletic director. Obviously, a lot of players really don't want to talk right now. Tried to reach out to a few. They didn't want to talk, and that's perfectly fine. So I did get a coach. We are going to hear from Carman-Ainsworth, first-time head coach, Dajuan Massey. He's excited and now devastated because he wanted to get out on the field for the very first time. And then we are going to hear from the athletic director from Mount Morris, Jeff Kline, who just so happens to be the president of the Athletic Directors Association. So he has a ton of knowledge on what has been going on, what went on the last couple of days, the talk between athletic directors, what was the process to get us to where we got today. And then finally, where do we go going forward? Are they going to play in the spring? How the heck do they play in the spring? Are kids going to have to choose between baseball and football? And if they're not, well, how do you have that much time to spread out where you play football first, then baseball? I asked them all those questions. We're going to bring that interview to you. And obviously, as you know, he probably doesn't have a lot of answers, but very good insight into what exactly is going on. He's heartbroken as well. Again, a tough day, and it's going to be a tough couple of months for all of us. But just some thoughts here, beginning with brand new head coach at Carman-Ainsworth, Dajuan Massey. Take a listen. All right, joined now by first-year head coach at Carman-Ainsworth, Dajuan Massey. And my gosh, what a way to not start, I guess, your first year, Dajuan. Man, tell us what happened, man. Tell us how you found out. You weren't at practice today. The kids were actually off, but tell us how the news got broke to you.
I was sitting in a barber chair and my phone was ringing, and I didn't pick up the first 3 times. It's in my pocket, and so I said, "Let me get this phone call real quick." And I seen it said Mary AD, and I knew it was something because she called that many times, and then she texted and said, "Please call me." And then before I even called her back, I scrolled on my phone and the kids was already talking about it, and they were just, you can tell they was just heartbroken, man. And so it was tough. So I called her back, and she told me, and we talked for a minute, and she told me process it over the week before we make some decisions how we're gonna move forward. But man, honestly, I'm kind of disappointed in the MHSAA. I mean, you release it on social media before we can tell our own kids,
Right.
and so obviously that's tough, man. Like, I just watched a video of Lapeer.
Yes.
They were on the field, man, and Channel 5 was there, and he had to tell a coach, and those kids broke down, man. That's the part that's gut-wrenching, man.
Yeah, he actually told the coach. The coach didn't know, and they were about ready to get rolling, and then he had to tell his kids right there, and cameras were rolling. I'm sure that video is out there. It'll be easy to find.
Yeah.
What have you been telling your kids? Because we're not surprised. I'm not surprised by today. I wish it would have happened months ago. I wish they would have flipped the seasons if this was going to be inevitable. But what have you been telling your kids? Because the MHSAA has been saying, hey, we're a go, we're a go. And even though they kind of maybe know that we're not, what have you been trying to tell them?
Honestly, man, I was really just trying to keep a positive vibe, and tell them, hey, it's a possibility. But also right now, we're going to prepare as we playing, I didn't want to put it out there because then if I put it out there, hey, we might get canceled. Kids might stop coming. I mean, these kids already been through enough, man, for 6 months, man, and not being able to be active and be in school, be social, man. And it's tough. But, I mean, obviously, I had a coaches meeting last night, and I discussed this very thing. I said, we might not practice Monday because I was hesitant on giving out pads next week until I heard the decision. And I told the staff that last night. And then I got a text from another coach this morning. He said, hey, it's a meeting today. And instantly in my gut, I said, it's going to get canceled. I texted one of my coaches. I said, man, it's going to get canceled. I can feel it. And he texts back. He said, I do too. And so I can feel it, man. But honestly, I didn't want to tell kids that. I mean, because their reaction right now says it all. They're heartbroken, man.
Yeah, I've been trying to get a hold of some kids, and obviously they don't want to talk. So I appreciate you being here because I know it's tough for you too. Here you are, first-year head coach, and I mean, personally, it's got to be heartbreaking as well.
It's tough, man. It's literally gut-wrenching, man. I was looking forward to the year, but honestly, I knew going in when I took the job that we were still in the pandemic, but we didn't know things were still going to get, this far as we went on in months. So I was hopeful, man. I was excited. I mean, the 2 months we had on practicing and conditioning, man, and it was great. We was building the chemistry. We was just starting to get rolling, and then boom, so hopefully we can find a solution in the spring. But like me talking on Twitter the other day, man, it's kind of impossible in Michigan, man. Unless we figure out some way, my hopes aren't that high.
We'll get into that in 1 second. I want to talk to you about kids today. You said they started group texting, and have you talked to any of them? And what are they saying to you? And maybe what can you possibly say back to them?
Yeah. I mean, I responded into the group chat, and they asked, hey, coach, what's going on? Are we still going to be able to practice? They still want to practice. I mean, that right now is unknown. We don't know. Right. And I just try to tell them, man, when I get more info, I'll let them know. But as of right now, man, just try to stay positive. But right now, in this moment, those kids don't want to hear that. Right. They just want to play football, man. And some of these kids, it's their outlet. And I get it. I was a kid before. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes in sports, that's all we have. And so these kids, they wanted to play football. I wanted them kids to play football because I feel like this could have been a different outlet for things that's been going on the past few months, but we also knew that it was a pandemic. It was a chance that we wouldn't be able to play. Yeah. So, it's tough.
You mentioned something right there, and we've heard Mark Ewell, the director of the MHSAA, even talk about this. A lot of times kids in maybe higher risk areas, as they're calling it, higher risk areas, whatever, sometimes this is all they have. And especially in a pandemic where everything seems to suck and they can't go to school and they can't do this and this and this. Talk about that maybe a little bit more, expand on that, man. A lot of kids, and we know in the Flint area, man, a lot of kids, they depend on sports. This is what we do, man. We make cars and we make athletes.
Absolutely. Like you said, this is a sports area, man. It's sports driven. If it's not cars, it's sports driven. And honestly, I mean, we both know I didn't been here all my whole life, and we know what's around these corners, and what happened around here, and it's easy for a kid to stray off, and especially like this. These kids don't have anything going on for 6-7 months. It's easy to get influenced. You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like these kids, the time we had for 2 months were were happy and they were happy to be around their friends. And so I'm gonna try to stay positive, and I'm gonna stay in the group chat and stay connected with the kids and try to keep everybody together. But at the same time, we know what's in the city. We see it every day.
Yep. Sometimes trouble finds you. Let me get back to what you mentioned earlier. You and I were talking earlier in the week about the possibility of moving it to the spring. I was a proponent of they should have just flip-flopped spring, because I thought this was inevitable. So I'm like, okay, if we're going to try to move to spring anyway, flip spring and fall and figure it out on Memorial Day. That way you have time to do it. Well, now it's too late. We're going to try to play football in the spring. You are completely against that. You do not think this will work. Tell us why you don't think it will work.
Honestly, man, we live in Michigan. We don't have the best weather in Michigan. Our spring normally starts in May. We still have snow in April. Where are we going to practice at? When is they going to have a start time for us to start practice? Is it going to be in May and we're going to play until July? And then if that's the case, we're going to have double seasons.
Right.
And I don't think these kids can handle that. It's you have a month off and then back to practice. And then, what if a kid is a two-sport athlete? Are we going to make the kid choose which sport?
Right.
It's tough, man. And I hope they have a plan, but me personally, I just don't see it.
Well, and tell us a little bit about the two-season thing. I think that's maybe the biggest thing, because if you're playing into November, it's cold and it's snowy and whatever, so you just kind of flip-flop. Okay, the early part of the season is cold and snowy and whatever, but you're talking about kids who could be, we're talking about kids getting hit and stuff. Dangerous. If you're really worried about player safety with COVID, how can you be worried about player safety when you're going to make them play back-to-back seasons like that? That's what you're talking about, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, man. So if they come up with a plan and say, hey, we're going to try to start in March, maybe that could work. But still, we still got to find practice times. We got to hope for some great weather in those times, because
right.
in Michigan it's still cold. It's still snow outside. So that's tough, man. I hope it's a plan. Because I feel for my seniors. I want those kids to have a season,
Right. Have any kids told you at all? I know you have kids that are probably moving on to college to play. Like, some of these kids might not play now because maybe they're already signed, or, they're committed somewhere. They're not signed. They're already committed somewhere to play. And maybe they're going to go to college early. You know how that is nowadays. Tons of kids go to college in January. You may lose kids because of that as well.
Right, man. That's the thing. Like I'm very close with Sullivan from Davidson. His dad coached with us for many years out in Northam. And I feel bad for him right now because he has to make a decision.
Right.
He's scheduled to go to college in January. So it's just not for my kids. I feel for other kids. They have to make a decision. They're missing out on a big part of their senior year of not finishing with their brothers where they started. Right. That's big, man. That's devastating.
Last thing for you, Juan. Give us the reasons why you should play in the fall. Like, you have been practicing and you have been doing workouts for however many weeks before this. I assume you guys haven't had any problems. I know some other schools have. But tell us why you do think you should play and why you think everything would be okay.
Just in my opinion, man, I think you give kids an outlet. The kids need some kind of social thing. If it wasn't sports, we need something where the kids can stay active. Honestly, we're doing our best to keep the kids safe, man, and checking the kids in every day and trying to social distance and keeping the same kids together every day. I was reading some things with the parents that was posted on Twitter from Mark Buell. I seen some people say their kids were depressed.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? So that was my whole thing of it. But honestly, we do know it's a pandemic and we know the risk of it. So it was always a 50-50. But I wanted the kids to play just for that reason, for the kids not to be getting depressed or not to have mental health issues. I mean, that's big, man, because it's going to happen at some point. It's going to happen, especially they're going back to school online. You know, and so who knows how long that's going to last. So they're going back now with no sports, no school, back online. They're going back to not seeing their friends again. You know, so that's devastating, man.
And you mentioned it, the mental health aspect we didn't hit on. I was going to mention the last thing before we go. It could be big, man. It really could. These kids have been locked up for 5 months, and now they're losing, you know, something else for who knows how long. It's rough, man. Hang in there, dude. I appreciate you, man. And the first season will come eventually, my man. I know it'll come eventually. I just wish it was in 2 weeks for you, man.
Right, man. I know, man. I'm gonna sit back and text a few people, man, and try to process it, man, and just sit here, and I don't want to turn TV on right now.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long weekend, unfortunately, my man.
Yeah, definitely, man. So, all right, man. I appreciate you, man.
Oh, dude. Thank you, man. Thank you once again.
All right, man.
All right, from the administrative side, we are joined by an athletic director from Mount Morris. It is Jeff Kline, who happens to be the new president of the Michigan Athletic Directors Association, the MHSAA. Jeff, first of all, thanks for being here, man. I know you probably are swamped right now with this announcement just coming down. From the athletic director side, how much can you tell us did you guys play into this decision? Because everybody's coming down on the MHSAA right now and Mark Ewell, but I know he wasn't alone with this decision. He had everybody in his ear. Is that right?
Yeah, you know, and anytime Mark Ewell or the MHSAA would come down with such a large decision, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that also impact that decision. Yesterday, all state athletic directors were sent a survey via email, and they were instructed to have those results back or their opinions back to him by 11 o'clock this morning. And, you know, they had a rep council meeting at 11 o'clock, which also I'm sure the results of that survey played into their decision, but also probably drove a lot of their discussion. And with that, the rep council for the MHSAA is kind of acts like a school board for the MHSAA, and that group is made up of superintendents, high school principals, and athletic directors from around the state. And it also includes large, small, medium schools. That they want a very diverse clientele in the room, or so to speak, a group in the room. So when they're making those decisions, everybody has a chance to weigh in.
Yeah, the great insight there on how things work. What do you think changed? Because Mark has been very transparent. We've seen him all over. I know he's been on Zoom calls with the referees, with you guys, the ADs, with everybody. He's done interviews. He's been very transparent, talking about wanting to play, think we can play. Even as early as a couple of days ago. What can you tell us maybe changed between his interview on the huge show that everybody heard a couple of days ago till this morning?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the survey probably played a large part in it. Although that survey is sent to athletic directors throughout the state, a lot of what plays into those decisions, like myself, I went in and talked to my high school principal, also, you know, conveyed with my superintendent. You know, a lot of those decisions by the athletic director are not totally made without somebody else's input. So then when he receives that input, and also know that they were in touch with the state health department and the governor's office on a daily basis. So although I'm not privy to those conversations, I'm sure a lot of comments that were sent back on the survey and how they were feeling. I also think just in communication with coaches associations and I know Big Ten commissioners, GLIAC commissioners, Division III. Mark also, if I don't know if he still is, but I believe at one time he was a signer for the Division III MIAA, you know, the league with Alma and Albion and that. So I know when my son played up there, he was an official during that time. So he's in communication with all those. And then as we move forward over the last few days, I think the risk of the unknown, but yet with college teams or college conferences, you know, ceasing football operations, it's hard to be out on an island by yourself, Ryan, I would think so.
Right. Yeah, I know he said that didn't play a part, but it had to. I mean, because like you said, it just doesn't look good if the high schoolers are out there playing, but Michigan and Michigan State can't. Saginaw Valley can't. I mean, just the perception, I would think, alone, that was nearly crippling for the high school kids, I would assume.
I would tell you my own perspective with Mark, and he's got a high school senior football player. His wife's the varsity basketball coach. With adversity, displays a lot of character, and I tell you, I can see how it's weighing on him. It's a tough decision for him. Not only with probably the inbox and his email this weekend, but also he's going home. And big decisions like this are never easy. But with leadership comes the heavy burden at times, and unfortunately he's getting his fair share right now. So.
Yeah, and I talked to you on the phone before we jumped on here. No question. I mean, I don't envy this guy whatsoever for having to be the face of this decision, because who knows what's right? Who knows what's wrong? Everything may end up fine. Who knows? But somebody's got to make the decision. That said, I have been very outspoken. I thought maybe a month ago or so, you know what? Let's just flip spring and fall all together. That way we don't have to mess around. We can just, obviously there's a lot of work that needs to be done if you're flipping the two things, but let's flip them. That way we don't have this football issue until the spring. You have a very good reason why we decided not to do that. Can you tell us what the thinking was behind that?
Yeah, and over the summer, the MHSAA has had almost weekly Zoom meetings, Google Meet calls, where we're trying to keep our members. What we've tried to do through that is have open discussion. And so with Mark, that questions came up a couple different times. And so in talking to him, his mind last spring, the seniors obviously got the rug pulled off underneath them. They're done. They graduate, move on. The junior class of spring sports, his thought was, okay, if we switch it, which had to be done probably in early to mid-July to even pull off with, the scheduling transformation and trying to line up officials and everything else. But his thought was, what if there's an uptick? I mean, still in July, a month ago, it's still the unknown. What if there was an uptick in positive cases or deaths at that point, and then we had to pull that spring season out from underneath those same kids, which would in turn miss half their high school career. You get to bigger schools, and some kids are only playing one sport. You get to a school like Mount Morrison, we push multiple participation over and over and over, but it's not feasible with some Class A schools. And his fear was to have to do that again to the same group of kids. And I think that it's reasonable. I think that we all kind of maybe I know I didn't take that into account, but it made a lot of sense when I was listening to him talk about it. So.
Sure. Well, now we are looking at hopefully football in the spring. So immediately everybody's going to go, well, I'm a baseball player. I run track too. What am I going to do? The plan, from everything I have been told, is to somehow try to make it where football and baseball do not overlap. Can you give us any thought? And I know today is day one and it happened 2 hours ago. Can you give us any thought how that could possibly maybe work where we do play football and also baseball in the spring? And you could play both instead of, trying to pick one or the other.
Well, like you said, there's a ton to work out with that. There's a ton to try not to step on toes of different sports. I personally see it probably being abbreviated schedules in both instances.
Right.
I would think one thing that would also have to be taken into account is your baseball, and then you got your travel summer ball, limited competition piece in our handbook for the MHSAA. And I'm not sure how that would look, because you almost would make people pick or choose between the two, which would be an unfortunate in both situations. So I think that'll have to be worked out. But football, I think if you started it around March 1 and you're doing some practices, yeah, it's chilly, but that's not the ideal season for baseball anyway. As you know, in Michigan, sometimes we start, but then, we have to keep canceling games until after spring break.
Right.
There was even the mention of spring break in the middle of the football season. So it'll have to be discussed to work through, but maybe we don't have the dead period between seasons or the down period between seasons, not the dead period. But and then there's also talk about shortening the winter season by a couple weeks to help, soften that blow. But if we were to switch them the other way around, so if we played baseball in March and then added football later on, you could essentially have a couple-week window where somebody ends football and then starts football. Right. And I'm not sure physically, young men want to deal with that. So that'd be quite the ground.
That's been a lot of the talk that I've heard. Yeah, some people with the weather, it's been, no, we can't have our kids go out here and get hit and then take 2 weeks off and then go get hit again. How much of a thought was that into everything? And what is, you're not a doctor, either am I. What's the proper amount of time that, okay, well, you can get hit until June 1st and then take June and July off, and then August 8th, you're good to go back out there again? I mean, what's the right answer there? I have no idea.
Yeah, and I think even if you and we would have two different opinions just on how your body and my body would react differently depending on the position we play.
Right.
Also, depending on what sports, you see some wrestlers come out of wrestling season. It's a grind. I mean, their shoulders are beat up, and then basketball guys, it might be more of their ankles, things like that, or fingers, getting jammed with a ball. I mean, so there's a little ticky-tack stuff that all, sports, have their different injuries that are commonplace. And so I think that's just up to each individual. Maybe some kids that were hurt this fall will get a chance to play football in the spring. I will tell you, it was devastating news to everybody involved, even the ones that had to make the decision. It was heartfelt. Mark just wants people to play and have the ability to play. And I will tell you some insight that, even I discussed with my own administration team is, being a small school district, we have a one positive case. And what I don't think a lot of people realize is each county has their own health department and guidelines. And so here in Genesee County, having a very strict one, we were going to have to take, a couple weeks off if we had a positive case. Well, I don't know how you do that in the middle of the season at this point. And so maybe once, things are safer or a vaccine is found, I think maybe you could have a safer window. Maybe it's only a 24 or 48 hour, maybe it's like, twisting your ankle in the game, and then you can kind of return from that.
Right.
But precautionary wise, I know we even had athletes that weren't playing this fall because of the fear. And that's unfortunate too. And I think all those building blocks and the feedback he's getting from other districts around the state, they all played a part into this. And I mean, who would have ever thought, you and I, sports fanatics, I mean, it's my job and your job is related to it. And to think that we would not be watching Michigan State or Michigan football on Saturdays or high school football on Friday evenings it's incomprehensible. And it's just it's so unfortunate. So no other way to put it,
Based on what you just said, I've got a lot of angry coaches and parents that are saying, why wasn't this decision made weeks ago, a month ago, whatever? A lot of teams got their pads today. And and I want to mention what you just said about the regulations, especially in Genesee County. If a teacher gets it, everything is shut down for 14 days. The whole class, everybody is gone for 14 days. I assume it's the same with football. And that's what I've been saying the entire time. Well, if one kid on one team gets it, well, there's 2 games. You're out. Like 2 games the team can't play. Like, why I know it was thought of, but why wasn't that immediately like, wow, we can't. If one kid gets it, we're screwed, kind of a thing. 'Cause I think that's what a lot of these coaches and parents that I'm seeing are saying. Why did it take till today when we have had districts? You mentioned yours. I know Flushing's volleyball team had an issue where they had to quarantine. Midland's football team maybe a month or so ago. So why? could you answer that for the people? Because I think that's the biggest thing they want to know. You knew this stuff. Why did it take till today?
Well, I don't think everything was known by today. And I would tell you on almost a daily basis, different briefs are coming out from the health departments. So guidelines are changing.
Yeah.
So with something being new or never having gone through, a pandemic before, I'm sure that they're getting up-to-date information. And then as they pass it on to us, and it takes a couple of days to cipher that and get the information to an administrative team, and then communicate that to the MHSAA. And there's so many deciding factors behind the scenes that the normal person would never realize that comes into play. And we all answer to somebody, right? And so, when they're telling us to go and look and go and refer back to the county health department, and here the MHSAA is dealing with how many counties in the state of Michigan, all having different, we are in different sections. We're in phase 4, but we're lumped in with the Detroit area in Genesee County. Well, our league plays within 4 or 5 counties. Yep. So we have 4 or 5 different health departments just within our league. So to compile all that and discuss it and talk it through, it's just never the right time to give bad news. And you're trying to make the best decision possible with the amount of information you have. It's just disheartening to think that anybody would think that a guy that has that much burden on him, that much decision making, that would impact so many people around our state, and yet his own child or kid is in that predicament. And so could we have made it earlier and just cut and dry? We would have been the bad guys then, because if things would have turned around, I mean, look at a week or two ago, the numbers were they were going down, but then yet yesterday the numbers were over 1,100. So it's been a roller coaster ride, and unfortunately that's what we're experiencing still. And even this decision, as much as it hurts, it's probably safer than moving forward.
Yeah.
Is the timing not what everybody thinks it should be? I'm sure it is. I'm sure you probably got it on both ends. People could argue both ways. I know the coaches are frustrated. I can't imagine what I'm going to do on a Friday night now, right? I have no idea. Watch old reruns of gold games. I'm not sure, but everybody wants it. That's what we give our lives for. And why would we ever want to take games away from kids? Maybe we have to be creative in different ways. Maybe we start running different sports on Friday nights. Maybe it gives soccer a chance at this point, if they end up playing, to play a Friday night game under the lights. And, I know that a lot of ADs around the state were preparing. We were installing all these camera systems so people could watch the games online. Like in Mount Morris, you can stream a football game, volleyball at our middle school, and a basketball game at our high school. We have all 3 covered now with streaming devices, so people could sit in the front room and at least enjoy in the moment. I mean, for kids, it's about competing. I know adults want to share in that moment, and it's a great moment. It's an exciting time in any family's life to experience that with your children. But we were all trying to make the best of a poor situation, and I think that continues still. So
I don't envy anybody who had to make these decisions. What do you think? What are the odds of these other sports happening? Do you have any clue? We're talking about the soccer, golf, volleyball. Because as of right now, they are a go. Football was the only casualty today.
Yeah, I think that the different sports are broken up into different categories. Low risk, which would be your tennis, your cross country, and your golf. A lot of those sports where there can be distancing. Probably the worst one would be just the starting line of cross country. But after that, everybody else can pretty much social distance with their sport. I think those are, I got some stats for you actually on the survey. That 90% said that we should move forward with those 3 sports. So as you're making a decision, that's a pretty easy decision to make, right? With the medium ones, which is volleyball, swim, and soccer, that was 75-25 that they should move forward. And I think some of the thinking behind that is, if you're bringing back kids in a blended schedule or a blended environment a couple days a week, you're still going to have a few hundred kids in the building. Why couldn't you play with 30 kids in competition?
Right.
So I think if we can work through the hundreds of kids in the hallways, we could probably work through 30 kids competing in volleyball. Swim, they always say, is safer because, the distancing or the chlorine in the water. In soccer, just wasn't seen as impactful. There is a lot of close contact, but they said in football, you're talking about 125, 150 plays where linemen, they're piling up on each other. They're hand to hand. They're in each other's face. Now, I did see some different things where they had the mask on. Another thing that people were trying to come up with to, make this thing go. And at this time, it just didn't seem like, enough people were comfortable enough at the health departments, at the state, and the surveys and the other people around, leadership. So.
Well, you gave us, I got to ask now, you gave us the numbers for the volleyball and everything. What was the numbers on football from the athletic directors?
It was split, kind of split. So right down the middle, really. And I'll tell you why that probably is. I would say if you surveyed the majority of athletic directors, they would have all said, let's play. Let's play. I mean, a lot of them are former coaches. They want to get it in. You can't imagine not supporting your athletes around town or whatnot, right, or your community. But I would tell you when it comes down to maybe what your superintendent or your high school principal believe compared to what you believe. It's different positions, and it's going to come from different angles. And I think that's more of why it was a split more evenly. And even with, the health department's decision on that, it was more split than in, being one, hey, it's a safe sport, go ahead and play, or it was so bad that you shouldn't play.
Well, you're seeing that in the Big Ten too. I mean, the presidents, whatever, if you believe it was 12-2, and then you got every coach on earth saying, we want to play, we're okay.
And then that surprised you that they would come out against their presidents? I mean, I guess maybe they need more money, but
a little bit. And
I mean, Jim Harbaugh probably makes more money than the president. But,
yeah, I think he's
it's surprising that they would.
He's the highest paid state employee, so I think he can basically say whatever he wants. I don't know, but yeah, no doubt. So you're telling us it was very torn for football with the athletic directors, very closer to half than not.
Well, if you think about this, Ryan, if like we just talked about with the health department thing, if we go into a football situation and one kid comes down with it, Mount Morris would have to take a couple weeks off because we don't have 50, 80 kids on a varsity team. I've heard numbers of Grand Blanc, you're in the upper 90s, or, you go to a Fenton or a Flushing and there's 50 kids on your varsity team. We're looking at 20, 25. So you take 15 kids away, right, then maybe you're trying to stick a freshman on a Friday night game. That is a tough obstacle to overcome. It really is. They're just, they're not mature enough physically to handle Friday night football a lot of times.
No doubt. One of the last things for you here, man. Okay, so going forward, we saw a couple of the GLIAC, the Pac-12. They have canceled sports until the first of the year, which means winter, which means basketball. I know you're taking one step at a time here, and you just got over this football thing, but, Mark Ewell on a Zoom call with the referees earlier this week was wondering, how do we ever wrestle ever again? Because obviously you're all over each other for however many minutes. Yes. How do we ever wrestle again? And plus the indoor factor with basketball and whatnot. What, if any clue, can you give people about what may happen come wintertime?
Well, I guess when I look at basketball, I don't think there's much difference between that and a volleyball game. When people are at the net, you got 6 people there, 3 on each side a lot of times. So I'm not sure exactly how that works out. But obviously wrestling, I would believe if football's 1A, wrestling's probably 1B. It's right there, right? I don't know. And, Mark talked about it at times earlier in the year about, if I think you probably saw the video online when it talked, Mark was passionate about, if we don't monitor this, somebody else will. And there's been a lot of wrestling that hasn't stopped at all. If you're a very competitive wrestler, you're going to Dakota, you're going to these bigger tournaments around. And I know just because of the coaching community and being, intermingling with a lot of dads who have kids that are still wrestling, that doesn't slow them down. So I also wonder if we did move back or vacate wrestling, I just think the AAU part of it, or, the youth groups would just run with it, and they would just add age groups and kind of take off with it. Up till what they could do as far as, a lot of it's going to play into what the governor says. Hey, how many people can come into a gymnasium or any type of facility at an event? You look at a youth wrestling. I know Mount Morris hosts the first one of the year every year. We have, 300, 400, 500 wrestlers. That's not even counting parents.
Right.
So it's chaos. They're parked all the way down Neff Road. So I don't know how that plays out. There would be zero social distancing at a youth wrestling tournament at this point, with that many people. But I have also heard talk of we would have to break it up into 2 different buildings, kind of split the age groups, which may make sense too. So I think that's just another thing that we're going to wait and see how that works out. Okay. Having a definite answer could be tough. So
sure. Last thing for you, man. First thing Monday morning, what I'm sure you might take the weekend, maybe you won't, but what does an athletic director do now? And what does the athletic director in the state do now? Because you got a whole lot of more planning to do. Can you walk us through what these next few weeks may look like for the administrators and everybody across the state now?
Well, we'll be on more Zoom calls. You can count on that. We have got some frequent flyer miles building up there. We'll stay tuned. Today, I will be honest, when the news broke, I was hanging a new school. So business as usual. A lot of what we have planned for that's happening now was planned months ago. A lot of the work right now, we'll be planning for winter schedules, spring schedules, tournaments, and adjusting on the fly. I think that's what athletic administrators do well, is accommodating things that come up. You wouldn't believe how much, a bus showing up late happens, or a bus doesn't come at all. Or a team doesn't show up for a tournament and you're redoing the bracket. There's a number of things that play into it, but I think that you could see participation in other sports go up. I mean, obviously everybody's got football players around. There's tennis and cross country and boys soccer that could use those athletes. Everybody could. And if you're a good athlete, yeah, maybe it's not your sport, but I'm sure a good coach can find a role for you. So, and maybe you could push those around you to be better. There's not a perfect answer. We will do a lot of meetings to accommodate the sports that are going, because there's still a lot of, you wouldn't believe how much, the health department is releasing new information every day, and we have to decipher that and talk coaches through breaks. And if somebody's sick, what's the, I guess, policy for that, and how are we moving forward? And our volleyball team is practicing on our tennis courts right now. So as you can imagine, we have a very competitive volleyball program, as where you came from in Flushing, same way. And every little girl wants to play those 2 sports in those communities. And so, we're trying to accommodate them the best we can. If you saw what we have rigged up out there, we got, tie the fence, but one nice thing about it, the balls stay inside the fence, but it's a hot surface. It's not ideal. I can't imagine diving on the floor on a that rough surface of tennis. Right. So we would hope to kind of get back to some sense of normalcy with whatever we can in this pandemic situation, but getting them back in on their regular playing surface and planning for the unknown, Ryan, over and over and over. It's about what we do. So
that was going to be my last question, but you just brought up something else. If we don't get to where these girls can go inside, because many people might not know, yes, all the volleyball programs are having tryouts and everything outside currently. Well, if we don't get it where they can go inside, is their season canceled, or are they going to play on the tennis courts? Do we have any idea? Are they going to hold games out there, matches out there?
I know Mark alluded to it. He's expecting some sort of communication from the governor soon with schools starting back up. I know a lot of our schools in our area have delayed that start date, trying to accommodate for getting more, devices in so they can give to students that are staying home, or if there's a hybrid system where the students are still going to need those devices on their off days when they're not. But even at Mount Morris, if 50, 60% of our kids are coming in on a blended schedule, you're still talking a few hundred kids a day in our hallways.
Yep.
I don't know how you can say we welcome back 200 or 300 kids a day in the hallways, but yet 30, they're still going to have gym class or a weightlifting class. So we can't welcome 30. Now, if there's fans, I don't know how that looks, or if it's a limited number of fans, that'll play out too once we get more guidelines from the state. But I got to believe if we're welcoming kids back that somehow the doors are going to have to open back up. I mean, currently, kids don't even have access to locker rooms. I mean, we handed out helmets that the coach had to walk outside and give it to the kid. They weren't even allowed inside. So, when you're following protocols, and we went, you talk about 550 of these gaiters with our logos on them. And so you'll know the athletes in the hallways compared to other kids because they're going to be able to pull them up. If athletes want to use them in competition, I mean, they don't have to, but, maybe a volleyball girl that's at the net a lot feels comfortable with it on. Maybe others don't, and that's their perspective. But I would think as a parent, at least they would like to have that choice.
Right. And
so those are different things that we ordered foot pedals for water igloos, the water jugs. It's a little apparatus that sticks out, and it's got a little rope on it. So the knob comes down. Once it goes down, then the water pours, so they don't have to touch it, so they can refill their water bottles. That was approved by the health department. So a lot of little things like that, signage that are going to go in the hallways, traffic one way. We're all involved in that, and it's going to be unique for sure. In every situation, there'll be a new one, and I'm sure parents will see things along the way that maybe we haven't thought of. That comes out, well, I'll be getting on an email and trying to communicate that out, like, hey, that's a good idea. And so if parents realize that we're working with them and not against them, I didn't come into education to ever see a kid hurt. Nope. To do anything wrong. I try to please. I want the kids' high school experience to be the best it can be. And that's why I get up and go to work every day. And, you have a small window to play high school athletics. And, if you'd asked me in the late 80s, I was going to be the shortstop of the Tigers. Well, it didn't work out that way.
Right. So
here I am, you and I are talking and hey, we all have dreams, and hopefully, we can help, have excitement and give kids the best opportunity to play. And right now with football, I mean, there's nothing positive you can say about it. It was a tough, agonizing, heartfelt, go back to tough decision. I mean, nobody would want to ever take that away, but it happened, and we got to try to find something positive out of it. And hopefully giving those kids another opportunity in the spring gives them an opportunity. It's not closing the door on the whole school year or calendar year of athletics. So.
Right. Well, man, I appreciate you. And yeah, I think you just nailed it. Nobody, because we get it on our end too. All these journalists that want sports canceled, man, that's how we make money. We don't want this. What are you talking about? Like, no one wants this to happen.
Sleepless nights for everybody.
Yes.
The kids, the coaches, administrators, parents. Yeah. What if? There's a lot of what ifs, and you can't make sense of a lot of things sometimes. And right now, you think of the people that football also impacts, cheerleaders, bands,
yes.
boosters, that money that won't be revenue.
The band.
All that stuff is gone,
Yep.
It's a lot of stuff it impacts for sure.
Well, and that's the other thing too is, everything always does crack down to money, but I've heard a lot of that too. Well, you don't think the MHSAA wants some money? I mean, this is how they make their money too. Like, they don't want this. They don't want this. Look around, man. Layoffs and things getting cut. Look what's going to happen with the college football. I mean, you're going to see a lot of people lose their jobs. We've already seen at Central Michigan, they've cut sports. Stanford cut like 10 freaking sports. I mean, this isn't taken lightly. This is not taken lightly.
You're right. That financial part, I don't think people are looking at that as much. It's not that they're totally worrying about losing everything, but man, I mean, that's a big ticket item for them. You're talking operating budget. MHSAA, schools don't pay them to be part of it.
No.
There's no membership fee.
No. Well, and I can give you some numbers.
Make off those tournaments.
They lost $1.2 million in 2 weeks by not having the spring sports season. They make 3/4 of their money from ticket sales at state finals only. So you're talking the Brez, you're talking Ford Field with the wrestling, you're talking all that. They lost $1.2 million, and that's for spring. Just imagine, and I don't know the number for the fall, but it's a lot more than that. So by losing football.
Yeah.
So they didn't do this without thinking. I mean, it's just unfortunate. It really is, man. And I appreciate everything you're doing because I know you guys have been busting your butt all summer long instead of being off, instead of having your summer. And that's not going to stop now that everything's getting even more double down on you because you got to go figure out a new football plan come spring as well. And hopefully that won't be all for naught, man.
I think, parents, coaches, and athletes, I think they just got to keep in mind that people are going to try to do the right decision. They're going to try to make the right choices here, and they're not looking to step on anybody's toes. So they got to keep that in mind. People are going to work very hard, and they're going to work a lot longer trying to reinvent this unknown that's about to happen in the spring. So, as things transpire, Ryan, give me a call back and we can talk maybe next week on what has transpired from volleyball or any time these come up. I when those announcements get made, I typically have a Zoom call to update, our membership, but you're more than welcome to, give me a call and we can jump back on here and discuss it. So
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. And, I don't envy you. I don't envy anybody right now. It's a pretty difficult thing to do, but appreciate it. And it's going to work out eventually. Hopefully this has gone longer than any of us could have imagined. So hopefully we're talking about better things sooner.
Hey, like we said before, adversity shows character. So, it really does. And people are going to work, 100 miles an hour to try to do the right thing. So.